The FCS college football experience, SoCon 2024 schedule breakdown episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Play their fantasy pick'em for a chance to win 100 times the amount of money you can enter in college football or ULF, NBA, MLB, MMA, NHL, golf, and much, much more. Sign up today at UnderdogFantasy.com. Use that promo code TCESGPN to get a 100% deposit match. And remember, as always, folks, too, let it ride.
Hey, everybody, Jim McMahon here, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride.
Welcome to the FCS college football experience, SoCon 2024 schedule breakdown episode. And look, if you hop on over youtube.com/the college experience, you can watch these shows live. But excited. The SoCon, one of my favorite conferences when it comes to college football and college basketball. Even a little bit of college baseball, but I love the SoCon. And I'm excited to talk about it. If you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, that's fair. My name is Colby Swing at Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
And you're nothing but a chameleon, lemon-headed, coward, terrorist pussy. And I'm after you, buddy. You're going to pay for it. Good night.
You are going to pay for it. Good night. The portal is going on. You know, we're still, one of these days, we're going to do a portal episode. But every time I refresh my feed on X, I just see, players going in left and right. We saw today Tennessee State, stud defensive lineman Terrell Allen hit the portal as a grad transfer. This guy had 14.5 sacks last year. He was Defensive Player of the Year, the OBC there. And, that's a substantial loss. We'll talk about that in a second. But as we haven't previewed that. We will. We will. All right. I know these are schedule breakdowns. It's not true previews, but schedule breakdowns. I am joined by my co-host. Give it up for, they call him the Gulf Coast Guru because he's down there on all those damn power boats. I saw a video of some kids down there in Florida on a boat just throwing a bunch of fucking trash in the ocean. All right. I don't think you were on that. Well, look, if you were on that boat, you were consuming cocktails. You can't police every son of a gun throwing shit in the ocean. All right. But I know damn well you've had a premium cocktail on a power boat in the past 24 hours. You don't need to brag about it. Give it up for the Gulf Coast Guru himself, Mike Rose. How you doing, brother?
What is up, man? Yeah, down here in Florida, man, we do whatever the hell we want. It doesn't matter. You can't tell us nothing. It's our ocean. We'll throw trash in it if we want to. No, that does not reflect the opinion of TC on SGPN. Just messing around with our litters. So
Look, I don't know why you would do it. Florida is the home to Ric Flair, and hard to go against that man. Anything can happen in the state of Florida, especially when you have Ric Flair living, on your turf, and Hulk Hogan, I think. Goddamn, you just get all the old retired. You get all the old retired New Yorkers mixed with all the old retired wrestlers. So it's pandemonium because those wrestlers are all fucked up, but I enjoyed them.
There's a ton, man. Yeah. You could go down to Clearwater Beach. You'll catch Hogan looking like a 200-year-old leather handbag sitting there in the sun with that leather skin, but he's still got the 24-inch python.
There you go. There you go. All right.
Shout out Hulk Hogan.
Shout out Suburban Commando. Look, they say Terrell Allen was perhaps the Suburban Commando of Tennessee State. He hit the portal, and Eddie George, who's already lost an OC that he had for like a week, been taking hits left and right. I also saw, unfortunately, Sam Hjord, the 5-star quarterback that threw 18 touchdowns at Cal Poly as a freshman last year, redshirt freshman. He hit the portal too. So can I go back and change some of the, the good thing is July will be our official previews, but now I'm starting to think Cal Poly, I don't know. They got that Madden money and he saw none of it, or perhaps a P5, or an FBS team, made him an offer, a strong ass offer, to quote Will Wade, the former LSU basketball head coach. I know the portal's going insane, but both those are pretty fucking substantial. Any thoughts on those?
Yeah, I'm hoping Mr. Hjord ends up somewhere where he could shine a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, the program's building out there, Cal Poly, but I expected a little bit bigger numbers from him coming down to the FCS level from the level of recruit that he was. So we'll see. I hope he ends up, at least G5 somewhere where maybe he's going to make some noise at the FBS level and get this career back on track, man. Or hey, maybe Washington's calling back. Who knows?
Yeah. And Cal Poly, now that you've had this devastating blow, go back to when you were winning a ton of games, when you were running the goddamn triple option. We need more triple option football. It is awesome. Get your shit together, Cal Poly.
Maybe Clifton McDowell could get back in the portal, get out the Cal Poly.
I'm sure he's got a few more days. He's got to get in. They got the Big Mac. McNeese got the Big Mick with Clifton McDowell. Robert Prunty, head coach of Hampton. I am trying to figure out this story here. Because the news that I saw is Hampton head coach Robert Prunty is no longer with Hampton University in the Pirate football program. The school announces today running backs coach / special teams coordinator Trent Boykin is the interim head. What? This is May. We're 24 hours from May. Fuck is going on here? And good luck in the CAA this year, because they were a team getting into the CAA. I know Prunty has he was, I remember him from East Carolina. He was the DC of East Carolina with Scotty Montgomery, and it was fucking horrible. But they were 7-3 in his first year at Hampton, then 5-7. Then the COVID year didn't play. Then they bounced back 5-6 in 21, 4-7 in 22, and 5-6 last year. But why make the decision now? That's why I'm curious if he got like a DUI or is there something there? Or I'm just a little bit confused. But this is pretty late in the coaching cycle here. Your thoughts on this news? And my first reaction would be like, I'm gonna fade them in the CAA now.
Yeah, especially. I think you're right. I hope not for his sake, I guess, maybe it's just a decision he made way too late, but it seems like the kind of thing that's probably something happened, DUI, something to that effect. Cause honestly, that team competed in the CAA. I mean, they didn't do good, obviously, but they competed a lot better than I thought they were going to for making that jump in the type of program that they are. So I really didn't think it was anything as far as performance level, because it kind of exceeded my expectations last year. Cost me a little bit of money here and there. So I think it definitely is something a little more internal that we're not seeing yet.
Yeah. I mean, or maybe like I know he's been known as a decent recruiter. Any chance an FBS school just gave him a shit ton of money? I don't know. Or maybe, something we should factor in is also just like how many coaches are probably just like, with the portal. There's like, it's funny. I tweeted out, or so I saw someone tweet. I think we talked about it last week, or maybe we didn't. I don't remember what show. But they were saying, it's impossible to coach these days. Why would any coach want to get into coaching? Why would you want to coach college football? To become a millionaire?
Yeah.
Just an idea. Just an idea.
That sounds like good logic. Also, the portal gives you a chance to flex your muscles a little bit and, take a new recruiting approach when you're recruiting players that are already out there. Go find a guy maybe like a hero that's sitting on Cal Poly. If you're a G5 coach, and say, hey, what the hell are you doing in the FCS? Come on up. Let's play here. Let's go to Boise, wherever. So I think it gives you a lot of opportunity to snatch some guys and turn a program around a little faster than you would even expect. So I see the complaints, but I think it also provides opportunity. Look at the
dude. I mean, we're going off the but Michigan and Washington just had the most players drafted, right? And they were not even close to like the top 5 or 10. Maybe Michigan one of those years I think was in the top 10 when it comes to recruiting rankings. So you're seeing that that's not so much of an X factor as it used to be. Anyone can use the portal, and you might have to work a little harder, but damn it, you've been getting by. You've been getting by stealing money. All right. All right. Let's jump into this action. Look, the SoCon is one of my favorite conferences. I'm an adopted Western Carolina fan. Shout out to Weehawk. Go Cats. And no, I really love the basketball and football within this conference. I thought this exercise was a lot easier than the Big Sky, and I'm going to go ahead and say I think it was a little easier than the Missouri Valley too. So the easiest of the 3 so far, in my opinion. You?
No, I agree, man. This one kind of flowed for me. I kind of looked at 2 teams side by side for each placement, and that was really all it took. I think this one was broken down fairly easily. So I liked it though.
Yeah, the football is good, man. The football is good. Let's jump into the mess. YouTube.com/the college experience. You'll see that we got graphics, uniforms, and everything. First up is the Chattanooga Mocs. They always have an interesting logo with this fucking hat on this bird. You know what I mean?
Get that guy going.
Yeah,
I like
it. I know they're a train, and it's supposed to be like a train conductor's hat, but it looks like a fucking chef also to me in a way. But either way, so the Mocs I had ranked as the second hardest schedule in the SoCon. Mainly you have 2 FBS opponents. So week 1, week 2, they're heading to Knoxville to take on the Vols of Tennessee and Josh Heupel. And then week 2, they're heading to Atlanta Center Park Stadium where Dale Murphy used to hit dingers, and to take on Georgia State. Georgia State, though, much like Hampton, lost their coach. Sean Elliott just said, "Fuck it, I'm out. I'll go coach tight ends in South Carolina." I think his family also resides in Columbia. But either way, that's the opening 2 games back to back away. Then you got a home game against Mercer, who, Drew Cronick left for the Navy offense coordinating job. It's Mike Jacobs, the former Ohio State Buckeye, that he was an interim. He's the head coach now, I believe. But that's interesting there. I would say, right out the gate, I know the Mercer game's a conference game, but those 3 games are all challenging. So that to me jumps out to me. Then you get a bye week 4. That's a little too early for me to really love the bye week, but week 5, a home game against Portland State, who we touched on them a week ago. Like I kind of like their roster, but their schedule's fucking insane. So I would actually favor Chattanooga there, and probably favor them against Mercer too. Then they hit the road, another back-to-back away as they head to Johnson City to take on, this is Battle of the Rails. Is that what it is? The East Tennessee State Buccaneers. Then that back-to-back away as they go to Greenville, South Carolina to take on Furman. Then you come home for Wofford and VMI. That's a nice little 2 home games there. But then you go back to another back-to-back away, going to Cullowhee to take on the Western Carolina, Catamounts. But then after that, you get the Citadel. Shout out to the Citadel. Love the Citadel. Then home to Samford, and then they end the season against the Governors in Clarksville, that's another non-con game that's interesting there. You can make an argument this is the hardest because of the 3 sets of back-to-back away. I'm curious your thoughts on this schedule, and this upcoming season in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I had this at number 3, and my top 3, actually, number 2 and number 3 were almost interchangeable for me. My number 1 was kind of clear cut, but yeah, I mean, you said it, 2 FBSs to start the season, back to back aways, and then another thing I'm looking at here is you got Furman on the road, you got Western Carolina on the road. That's tough right there. And then at the end of the year, you got that Austin P game that you pointed out. The thing about that is you might look at that and say, oh, for a non-con, that's not too bad, right? But you're talking all the way at the end of the year. So even with Coach Walden leaving, even with all the players leaving too, you got to assume at that point, Austin is going to be playing their best football, plus, a little bit of a local rivalry going on there. So they're going to get Austin P's best shot. So I think this non-con, 3 out of 4 of them on the road, that's pretty brutal. And they hit some tough games on the road as well. Outside of that, 3 back-to-backs, like you said, this is a tough schedule for the Mocs. Now,
Rusty Wright has never had a losing season with the Mocs. He's a former Moc himself, played tight end there. They made the FCS playoffs a year ago, made it to the second round. They were 8-5 and they got in. I actually think that Georgia State game could be winnable because how late in the year that Georgia State's, their coaching change happened. Like, it's week 2. They had players leave left and right. I think that's kind of winnable. I think they got to be, they got to start the season pretty hot from like Tennessee game's a loss. Georgia State, they're going to be dogs, but Mercer, Portland State, they at least got to get. I'd say they got to be 2-2 after 4 games, because after that, and if they do drop both, FBS games, then the road schedule is what's brutal. It's like they're probably going to be dogs against ETSU, short dogs. I think they'll be dogs at Furman. I think they'll probably be dogs at Western Carolina. Now, yeah, and who knows with the Governors? That's another questionable game. But yeah, like you said, getting them that late in the season, Governors will have some a lot of time to figure out who the fuck they are. So yeah, I think it's challenging. So you had a third though, correct?
I did. I had a third.
Okay. Before we jump to the next one, I want to tell the fine people out there that you're listening to the FCS College Football Experience, and we're part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, SGPN. And it's time. It's that time of year. Playoffs, to quote the great Jim Mora. That's right. Make sure you tune in all week to the NBA Gambling Podcast and the Hockey Gambling Podcast for episodes to get you locked in on exciting playoff action in the NHL and the NBA. Plus, it's Derby week on the Sports Gambling Podcast. Tune in as the guys get ready for the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. Nothing like the Kentucky Derby. Get yourself a mint julep. Listen to the Sports Gambling Podcast. We got you covered. Also, the notorious OTB podcast, which I recommend. Check out those. And remember, as always, to let it ride. We're back on the FCS College Football Experience. Shout out to the chat. Remember, you can chime in here, youtube.com/the college experience. Bart in the chat saying, go Paladins. Gotta love the Paladins. Let's jump on over though to the Citadel, which, I've been a fan of the Citadel for a long time. I mean, I just think that something about their uniforms down there and just, they're running triple options. So, you know me, and I Stump Mitchell, my guy, Stump Mitchell. Now they've hit rough seas lately. They've hit rough seas. Last season was not the greatest year, but Maurice Drayton, maybe he's the guy to figure it all out. The schedule sets up pretty damn nice. I have this as the easiest schedule in the SoCon this year, and it needs to be the easiest schedule in my opinion, because when you look at essentially what they got their ass whooped in a lot of games. They were 0-11 last year, so it needs to be. I know they had the close call with VMI in the military classic there, but and they kept it close with Wofford. But damn it, they need to fix some things. And hey, I like the fact that your worst team from a year ago has the easiest schedule, in my opinion. Did you have this as the easiest schedule?
Yeah, I did, man, and I was also happy to see it because they need it. I thought they were going to turn a corner at some point last year, but eventually they wound up in the auto fade bucket for me, and that's where they landed for the rest of the year. So maybe a little bit of improvement towards the end of the year because the beginning, I remember they were just offensively entirely inept. But yeah, this schedule sets up nice for them.
It sets up nice for them because you have the situation. Well, out the gate, they stay in the city of Charleston, take on Charleston Southern. I don't want to say that's for sure a win, but wouldn't shock me if they won the game. Then they're home to South Carolina State, which no longer has Buddy Pugh. Now, I did like the hire that they made, but winnable. Then home to North Greenville, D2, winnable. Then they head to Mercer, which I expect them to lose, but it is the first month of Mike Jacobs' tenure there at Mercer. So I gotta like that. Week 5, you're home to ETSU. That should be a loss, but who knows? Week 6, I like the fact you get ETSU and Furman at home. Maybe you can catch them sleeping, but I think the big thing that stands out to me is the road spots here. At Charleston Southern, at Mercer, were the first 2 road spots. By week 6 now, after you played, the 2 home games against ETSU and Furman, week 7, you're heading to Cullowhee to take on Western Carolina. That, I think, is your hardest road trip of the whole season within the FCS. Then you back-to-back away, you head to Lexington, Virginia to take on them Keydets in the Military Classic. Then you're home to the Sanford Bulldogs. And then you got a bye week 10, which I like that bye week there. I prefer it maybe like a week or 2 before, but it's still solid. Then you're home to the Chattanooga Mocs, and then you're at Wofford, and then you have a horrible game to end the season at Clemson. But got to be honest, what's appealing to me is the road spots. Like, it would shock if I told you the Citadel beat Charleston Southern, you'd be like, I can believe that. If I told you the Citadel beat Mercer, I don't think we would assume that, but at least you're getting a first-year coach in his first month of his tenure. At Western Carolina, I suspect they'll lose, but VMI and Wofford are certainly winnable. So I kind of like the way the schedule lines up. Am I crazy?
No, I think you're exactly right. I mean, if there was a book, I wish there was a book. If you find one, let me know that you could find over-unders for the Citadel. I would feel a little bit better taking, maybe an over. I would rather, for this type of team, the Citadel, with realistic expectations, I would rather have Chattanooga, Furman. Go ahead, get those games on the road. I'd like to see VMI, maybe Wofford, those be home games for the Citadel, make it a little more winnable because, I don't think you're going to beat Furman at home. I just don't. So, but outside of that, yeah, I mean, everything lines up. You got some winnable games on this. The non-con, 3 of the 4 really manageable. You don't leave the state, the Carolinas, for any of your non-con, so they're pretty much all like SoCon territory games for the whole schedule. You gotta love that. No far trips. I think there's opportunity here if this program's going to grow. This is the year to start it off because definitely some winnable games. They could be conceivably 3-0 out the gate. I'd say it's 50-50 shot. They could be 2-1, honestly.
Yeah, and let me ask you, do you think like the transfer portal era really kills these like service academies? Do you think they haven't had, so what? I think it was in 19 that they had like a 500 season. But prior to that, it had been a little bit. I remember the Citadel with Mike Houston, who's now East Carolina's head coach. Back in what I feel like it was 2015 or 16, they made the FCS playoffs. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think that it's harder to win at the Citadel now more than ever, or because I still believe, I really do, that like there's nothing like if you run the triple option correctly, you can go far. Now I know it's harder to recruit at these military institutes, but like I could tell you a ton of schools that I think should be running. Like, I never understand why Vanderbilt doesn't run the triple option. I've never understood why Indiana doesn't run the triple option in the FBS. And I think a lot can be said of teams in the FCS that are coming that we talk about, Morehead State, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like some of these other schools I just think they should be doing it. But do you think this hinders their chances moving forward, like the current state of college football with everyone in the portal?
Yeah, I think it absolutely does. I mean, you got the rule changes that seemed like specifically targeting the triple option, so that hurts right there. You're not getting anybody coming in through the transfer portal, but somehow, I don't. Even though I was in the military, I didn't go the military academy route, so I don't know how it works if you don't sign any contracts till you graduate. Whatever.
I think you're kind of on board. I mean, I know. I guess
I see players transfer out.
But do you ever see him as freshman or sophomore? I feel like they're always like grad transfers, right?
Isn't that when they're supposed to go, like under contract?
Yeah, but maybe you can feel something. You're right though, because I have seen like UCLA got a kid from Army last year. Mm-hmm. What's his name? Atkins, I think, or Adams. But yeah, I don't know. It makes it tough. I thought this was. Hey, look, if you're a Citadel fan, you want the easiest schedule in the SoCon to get out of this funk you've been in over the past few years. I still buy in that this offense, or what you guys have been running can work. But yeah, obviously you got your work cut out for you. Let's jump along to the next school, as long as my alphabet is correct. ETSU, the East Tennessee State Buccaneers. Wasn't that long ago that they were kicking ass, but that was a different time. But now they go out and bring in our boy Trey Lamb from Gardner Webb, who I think is a really good coach. I mean, they were 3-8 last year, and really only had 2 wins because one of those was I think a D2 game. Man, it wasn't that. What year was it that they were in? It was like 2021. I feel like they were in the FCS playoffs. They went 11-2. Beat Vanderbilt's ass in the construction zone there in Nashville. Now turning a new page. But I had this as the second easiest. Where'd you have this?
That's interesting, man. So this is where we're the most different, I would guess, probably throughout this whole podcast. Then I had this at number 4, just outside of that top 1, 2, 3 that I thought was clear cut. I had this in the middle of the pack at number 4. Reason being for me, non-con, real tough, right?
Oh, well, that is true. Well, yes and no. To me, like, yeah, I understand it's challenging, but there are some opportunities to me, like the road schedule within the conference, the Citadel on the road, Wofford, VMI, Mercer. I think they're all games they'll be favored in. So to me, that was, yes, the non-con is challenging. You go right up the road. This is an old school SoCon rivalry. Week 1 as they head to Boone. They're not far away from Boone. If you've been to Boone or Johnson City, they're not that far away. East Tennessee State at Appalachian State. I actually love this. This should be on the schedule every year, in my opinion. Every year, put this game on the fucking schedule. Week 2, they get UVA Wise. Yes, Virginia. UVA Wise is the name of the D2 school. Patty C had a great story about this. I can't recall it, but I lived in the state of Virginia at one point, and I didn't even know this fucking school existed. But so that's a win. Then you're home to North Dakota State. They're breaking in a new head coach, though. Now, yes, should they be dogs at home? Yes. But you can't tell me there's not a little vulnerability in the unknown. So then they head to Elon, North Carolina to take on one of the better teams in the CAA, the Elon Phoenix. Okay. That, there's a decent shot. You're 1-3 in the non-con, but I also think you could be 2-2. That Elon game's huge though. But then my main reason I think for ranking at 8th was the conference schedule, because I think you get all your best opponents at home. Chattanooga, Samford, Western Carolina, Furman, all have to go to Johnson City. And that's why I ranked it 8th. You had it at 4th, right?
I did have it at 4th, mostly because of the non-con. I think any way you shake it, this team's coming out of that non-con most likely 1-3. Now, you did make a good point. And second look, maybe I would slide it back a team or two. Funny enough, what some of my close things came down to, like if I'm comparing VMI and ETSU, with the SoCon, you got 9 teams, so everybody's going to play every other team in the conference.
It's beautiful. It's the way college football should be.
It's awesome. So when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking like, oh, well, like VMI has to play ETSU. That's a tough game, but it's because, VMI isn't VMI, so they can't, or they are VMI, so they can't play VMI. So it's like an extra tough game. But yeah, I mean, I had this at 4. Maybe I would slide this a little back looking again, but I don't know, man. It's a tough schedule. The non-con, I think for a new coach and a new program and everything, getting your feet under you, starting off with those 3 non-conference games in particular that are brutal, it's just not the way I want to start off a new look program for me.
Fair. And I can't help but laugh at the currently they're holding these college football 12-team playoff things for the FBS, and they have all these they're in hotel boardrooms and shit, and they're just, well, we want to avoid these rematches. God damn it. We did our model. We looked at the past 7 years of the 14 playoff, if it was a 12-team playoff, and there's all these matchups that would be happening again. Hey, you pieces of shit. If you would have kept your conferences at 9 or 10 teams, remember the old Pac-10? Remember the Big 8 or Big 12? Even 12, I'm okay with. You would have avoided these fucking rematches. But this is what happens when you have 7,000 teams in one conference. Terrible. I have no sympathy for that. Oh, it's a hard job to do. Fuck you. You know what I mean? ETSU though, it's going to be a fascinating season because we saw what they did in the portal. Mm-hmm. I'm buying in, man. I can't wait. I actually think one of the sneakiest games on the schedule for me is that North Dakota State game. I can't wait to watch that. I think for the FCS season, going through and circling the games that you want to see most, that's one that's pretty high on my list. Yeah, so I had it at 8th, you had it at 4th. You could tell we're all over the fucking place, but that's part of the fun. Folks, before we get to the next one, I want to tell you that the FCS College Football Experience is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. The NBA playoffs are here, and our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, wants to make it a lot more interesting. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. Play in their fantasy pick'em is as simple as selecting higher or lower on player stats like points, rebounds, assists, and much, much more. Make entries of all, basketball, or you can mix and match across sports. The UFL is a new, it's like the XFL and the USFL that have merged together. And I've been making a bunch of, whether it's DFS or through Underdog Fantasy here, you can find a lot of great opportunities there. And that's what's so cool is you can mix like, okay, I'm going to take LeBron. And then you can say, oh, Adrian Martinez, the former Nebraska and Kansas State quarterback who's now with the Birmingham Stallions. You can take him and you can mix it with the NHL or MLB. It's fucking awesome. Or even UFC. It's really cool that they let you do that. You got to check it out, in my opinion. You can win up to 100 times the amount of money you enter. It's a ton of fun. Underdog's available in 30 plus states, including California, Texas, even the whole country of Canada. So no excuses. Get on over there. Sign up with the promo code TCE SGPN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code TCE SGPN. All right, we are back on the FCS College Football Experience. Chat rolling along. I see 170 people in here. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Shout out to Channing Brown. Yeah, so next up on the alphabet, I think, is the Furman Paladins. Let's go. I had this as 4th. Speaking of what you just had, East Tennessee State's as 4th. This is my number 4. Where did you have this one?
I had Furman, again, kind of in the middle of the pack, but I had them back at 6. I actually see some opportunity in the schedule.
Well, week 1, they take on the Portal King, known as Lane Kiffin, who just had a spring game where they were playing fucking tug of war. Don't get me started on spring games now. But look, they're going to lose that game because Ole Miss is kind of loaded. But after that, I do agree with you. They're home to Charleston Southern, home to Stetson, Ray Finkel's alma mater. Then they're heading to Williamsburg, take on the Tribe, known as William and Mary. That's a great non-con game.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. I would favor Furman by a little bit.
I think I would too. Yeah. Man. After the year we saw at William and Mary last year, yeah, I think I would.
Yeah. Then week 5, they're home to Samford. Then week 6, they're at the Citadel. Then week 7, home to Chattanooga, followed by home to Western Carolina. 2 huge home games there. They got a bye week 9, that's where I'd prefer my bye week to be personally. 8 or 9 every time. Week 10, they're at VMI. Week 11, they're home to Wofford. Week 12, they're at ETSU. And week 13, they're at Mercer. And I think that is kind of what I highlighted on my logic on doing it 4th. Now, the more that I think about it, maybe it deserved to be 5th. But I do think when you look at the road schedule, yes, you got the Citadel and VMI there, but the other 4 they could lose. Ole Miss, they're going to lose. William and Mary, they could lose. East Tennessee State, by that point, I think Lamb will have ETSU really rocking. I think that's I would favor ETSU, I think, that late in the year. I don't know. It's year 1. It's, I mean, but with the portal, it's like he brought in like 30 fucking guys. So it's like, it's a completely different thing than like thinking 3 or 4 years ago. And then at Mercer, will Mercer be once again, Mercer breaking in a new head coach, but by week 13, he's going to have it together a little bit. I guess you could sell me on me misseeding this one though. I think this should probably be 5th if I had to guess. Now that I look at it, because I think you do like the home games there. Anyway, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's my take on it is you get, Samford, Chattanooga, and Western Carolina. Those are 3 year tougher games, and you do get those at home. I really like the non-con. I mean, you're going to be 2-2 worst case scenario there, but I think there's a good chance. I think they could be 3-1. I wasn't very impressed with William and Mary last year. I'm not sweating getting Citadel or VMI on the road. You got Wofford, should be an easy win. So, I mean, we're looking at this. The biggest fear for me is coming up at the end of the season. Like you were saying, that's a tough back-to-back road trip against ETSU and then Mercer. And the worst place that road trip could be for both of those games is at the end of the season, the last 2 weeks of the season, just because they are 2 new teams. And by that point, they should be playing their best football. So tough at the end of the season. But I think Furman, they're kind of looking like maybe the favorites again for the SoCon to me so far.
It's. I think I should also highlight the Samford going William and Mary, then home to Samford. That could be a tricky game. There. But yeah, I mean, I think I should have had this a little bit further back. Now that I think about it. All right, next, moving along, we got the Mercer Bears, the one that the team I was just talking about, Mike Jacobs, year 1. The non-con, very favorable early on. It's tricky, folks. YouTube.com/the college experience. You can watch this. We have graphics for every school. Week 1, home to Presbyterian, win. And I know it says week 0 there. I fucked that up, but it's really week 1. Then week 2, they head to Daytona Beach, the place where Ed Reed was a coach for 12 hours. Bethune-Cookman. Then week 3, they do have an early conference game at Chattanooga, which I think you'd want to, if it were me and I was breaking in a new head coach, I would want that further back. Then after that, we got the Citadel, followed by, and that's a home game against the Citadel. I did fuck up the location there. And then week 5 at Wofford, then a bye week, and then home to Princeton. I love that game on the schedule. Then week 7 at Samford. This is where it's tricky to me because like home to Princeton could be tricky. Then at Samford, then home to Western Carolina, then home to East Tennessee State. All those teams in a row. That's a lot of meat on the bone there. And then you do get a little bit of a pass, but it's a road game at VMI, and it's kind of a look ahead spot because you got at Alabama. Yes, the Roll Tide. And then you're home to Furman after Alabama. That's a nightmare to me. Actually, yeah, I'm switching this. This is harder than what I just talked about.
Hold on. Can I talk you out of switching though? Because I had them at the same point you did. I had them at 7, and I looked at that same stretch too, but. Coach Mike Jacobs, new coach, and I'm hoping that Coach Jacobs isn't. I know this sounds counterintuitive to being competitive in sports. I know, but you can't overlook VMI for Alabama because you're not going to fucking have a chance against Alabama.
But
so
getting Furman after the beatdown of Alabama.
Don't even play your starters. Play your second, play your third string against Alabama. Take it as a second bye week right before you get Furman at home to end the season. I actually think that could be a benefit to the schedule as long as you suck up your pride, Coach Jacobs, and say, hey, we're not beating Alabama.
So you had it ranked where? What was your number?
7, same spot.
Okay.
Same spot.
I mean, I like the conference. I don't know, because it's a little tricky. It's a little more tricky than I thought. I think I would move this up.
I would even be very worried actually about that Princeton game coming before the Stanford game. That is a tricky spot, except for that little bye week coming in right before the Princeton game.
But the 4 games in a row, and I know 3 of them are at home, but home to Princeton, at Stanford, home to the Catamounts, then home to ETSU. That's 4 straight weeks of decent opponents.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would, if I would at least put it at 6th.
Okay.
I'll tell you that. In hindsight, but yeah, shout out to the Mercer Bears. It's going to be interesting to watch them down there in Macon, Georgia. All right, let's move along to the next one. Let's go to the Samford Bulldogs. They got to bring that old logo back. Look at that old logo, fucking fire. That shit back. Slap that thing on the helmet. Let's play ball. One of my favorite games all season is week 1. They head to West Georgia, which is a brand new FCS school. Yeah, down there in Carlton, Georgia. I love it when you're like, I like these new schools coming up, like North Dakota State did and whatnot. So I'm fascinated by that first matchup. And after that, they play at the Swamp, where they almost knocked off the Gators a couple years. They put up a 50 burger in the Swamp. Then they're home to Alabama State, the Hornets there. Then they got a bye week. See, I hate the week 4 bye week. Then they're at Furman. But yeah, that's true.
Nice spot.
That's true. But I just think then the gauntlet, you don't have any. I'd like it just like in week 7 or 8 or something. But after at Furman, you're home to VMI, then at East Tennessee State, then home to Mercer, then at the Citadel, then home to Wofford, then home to Tennessee Tech, then at Chattanooga, and then home to Western Carolina. See, there is no real back-to-back. I mean, yes, in the non-con to start the season, but you have a month of prep at West Georgia, a brand new FCS school, followed by at Florida. That's okay. I don't think it's as bad, but at the same time, I still think when you think about it, at Furman, at East Tennessee State, and at Chattanooga is what you don't want on your schedule, and all 3 happen. Those 3 are like to me, like 3 of the best teams. I know that the Western Carolina would be in that mix too. So you get 3 of the 4 on the road, and that's why I had it at 5th. Where'd you have this one?
So this is my team. This is, I think, if anybody's going to jump up, because you got Mercer, new coach coming in, a little bit of change going on there. This is my team that I think could sneak up into the playoff picture if they kind of turn things around from kind of having an unexpected down year last year. I got this at 8, man. I love the non-con. The non-con super easy to me. I mean, West Georgia, props to you for coming up, but to me, that's still kind of I know they're FCS, still kind of a D2 game at this point.
My thing is that thing's going to be packed though. Mm-hmm. Like that, that they've been licking their chops. Oh, first home game as a D1 college football team. It's a little trickier, but I mean,
sure, but you get it week 1, which is where you want it. You got all off season to prepare for it. Throw out the Gators game. That's fine. Alabama State. I think this is one of the most favorable non-cons in the conference, honestly. Tennessee Tech, Alabama State, West Georgia. I like those, even though I do expect Tennessee Tech to be better.
I'm about to say GBO Farm's going to get super pissed for shitting on Tennessee Tech.
I do expect them to be better, but I don't know about 1 year, how big of a difference. But I love the bye. Like I said, I don't love early buys, but if you're going to have one before Furman, I love that. BMI, Citadel, Wofford, those should all be wins. Tennessee Tech, they should be favored. No real back-to-back aways except for, like you said, at the beginning of the season. So I see a lot of opportunity for Samford to right the ship and, like you said, we said it last week. Patty C talks about sometimes it's the year after the year. I think this might be the year after the year for the Bulldogs. I like it.
What number do you have it though?
I had them at 8.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can see. I mean, I don't agree, but I can see it. It's gonna be a fun year to watch Sanford. Hopefully, and get it back going again, running that air raid. Next up, VMI to key debt. So we had former head coach Scotty Wackenheim on the show in the past year. Former Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year. That was a fun convo, and now he's known Danny Rocco a long time. Took over. A season ago for Scotty Wackenheim, and Danny Rocco, I think is a good college football coach. Now they were 5-6 last year, but damn, they were in some games, man.
Uh-huh.
You look back at that schedule. Now they won some close ones too, but I'm saying like they lose a 1-score game to Bucknell in Lewisburg, right? They only lost to Sanford by 13. They lost to the Mocs of Chattanooga by 1. Now they did get their ass whooped against Furman. They did get their ass whooped against Mercer. And they won a bunch of close games. Like all of their, this is gonna be one of the hardest teams to predict because they have a 5-point win against Davidson, a 3-point win against Wofford, 4-point win against the Citadel, 7-point win against East Tennessee State, a 3-point win against the Western Carolina Catamounts in the ultimate choke job of the year. But I trust Andy Rocco. I think he's a good coach, man. So I think this should be excited. I had this as the 6th ranked schedule. The non-con first opening Thursday night, week 1. I am excited for this game. VMI at William and Mary. I love in-state battles, college football. That's the heart of college football. Let's go. They'll probably lose that game, but I'm excited to watch it. Then they're home to Bucknell. I do think they get revenge against the Bison. Then they head to Georgia Tech to take on the Ramblin' Wreck there at Bobby Dodd. Week 3, they should lose that with Brent Key there. Week 4, they're home to Norfolk State, the Spartans, and that's a winnable game. I don't know that I would say for sure. I kind of think Norfolk State's headed in the right direction, but week 5, they get a bye week. Week 6, they have. So I love the bye week before your only back-to-back aways.
Uh-huh.
At Samford and at Wofford. I also like Wofford on the back end of a back-to-back away, as opposed to if it was flipped around. Then you're home to the Citadel. Then you're at Chattanooga. Then you're home to Furman and Mercer before you head to Cullowhee to take on the Western Carolina Catamounts. And then you're home to East Tennessee State. Like the only problem is this. To me, the final 5 opponents are fucking brutal. That's like the only element of like, am I ranking this properly? The front half of the schedule, I think, is easier than the back half of the schedule. Your thoughts, and where'd you have this ranked?
Yeah, man, we're real close on this one. I had this one at 5. It's like you said it, the beginning half of the schedule, the non-con, a little bit easier, manageable. I mean, you're going to lose to William and Mary, but Bucknell, Norfolk State, those are both winnable games. I'm tossing the Georgia Tech one out. Probably a loss there, obviously. I like the bye before the back-to-back, like you said, and I like the order of that back-to-back, like you said. Now, after you get out of that Citadel game, which I do love that VMI does get the Citadel at home, that helps because, those are 2 of your bottom-tier teams for this conference. So getting them at home, I like that advantage. The end of that schedule, though, really brutal. You don't like to see that, but maybe they pull an upset here against maybe a Mercer and ETSU if things are rolling the right. I actually think this team could surprise. I'm with you. I think Danny Rocco is doing a great job. I think this team really exceeded my expectations last year, and this is going to be interesting.
I feel like he can fit. I know he's like, but I mean, like I think he can work there. I know he's older, but I'm saying like this is a guy that has, you go back and look at what he's coached, his coaching tree too. Like, he's made the NCAA, the FCS playoffs 12 fucking times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the guy that first got Liberty going. He never had a losing season at Liberty. Then he was at Richmond. Never had a losing season at Richmond. With his final 3 years at Richmond, made the FCS playoffs every year. Then he went to Delaware. Now he had 2 of his His only 2 losing seasons as a head coach prior to VMI were in 2019 and 2021. During the COVID season, he took Delaware to the Final Four of the FCS playoffs. This guy just wins. So 5-6. I think he can get it done, man. I think they'll probably be better than what we expect. So shout out to the chat. Shout out to Kenneth, says, what's up, fellas? Appreciate you. Yeah, let's jump on over and talk about our cats. Yes, the Western Carolina Catamounts. Shout out to Weehawk. I had this as the number 1 hardest schedule. Where'd you have this?
Yeah, this was kind of non-questionably my number 1 hardest schedule. Shout out to this fucking athletic director, Weehawk. Get him on the phone, ask him what he's doing, man. The scheduling, I don't love it.
Weehawk. Western Carolina should have made the FCS playoffs last year before they choked against Danny Rocco. They did choke. There's no way to butter that up. But now you look and you say, man, I want to root for them, but damn it, I can't see them. I know this isn't even our preview episode, but I just can't see them getting there with Kerwin Bell. I think he's a good coach, but they lose his son, the OC. Maybe that's not a big deal. Maybe because he's still he's an offensive guy. Kerwin is played quarterback in Florida in the 80s, but at the same time, like the road spots. Okay, the non-con folks, if you're listening to this on the audio side, not watching this on YouTube, at NC State week 1 in Raleigh. Hey, it is NC State. The Pussy Pack, they can lose. The Pussy Pack can always choke. But NC State's loaded. They got Grayson McCall, aka Big Bird from Coastal Carolina, coming in. They went out and killed it in the portal. They're not going to win that game, I don't think. Carter Finley, as much as they're the Pussy Pack, they do pack that stadium in. Week 2, they're home versus Campbell, who's breaking in. Mike Minter's gone. They're breaking in a brand new head coach, but at the same time, they're not a bad. Like they've recruited at a high level over the past few years. So even that game's tricky. Then you head to Elon week 3. Love the in-state battle, but damn, I'm thinking there'll be short dogs there. And then week 4, you head to Missoula to take on Montana, who played in the FCS National Championship last year. Bring in Logan Fife from Fresno. Dude, there's a shot they're 0-4 in the non-con. I'm going to say 1-3, but there's a decent shot they're 0-4 in the non-con. They get a bye week 5, a little too early for me. Then, okay. Now we'll say this. If you're really looking for what's the best angle is fuck the non-con. Go 1-3 and be happy about 1-3. Because you can get a little bit of momentum out of the bye week here. Home to Wofford and home to Citadel. You should win both those games. You should be 2-0 in conference. But then you're at Furman and at Mercer and back-to-back away. Let's say you lose to Furman. You got to get that Mercer game. Mm-hmm. Then you're home to Chattanooga. You're at East Tennessee State. I probably think you split those. But then you're home to VMI, and then you're at Sanford. To me, look at those road games. NC State loss. I think there'll be a dog against NC State. I think there'll be a dog against Elon. I think there'll be a dog at Montana. I think there'll be a dog at Furman. At Mercer, there'll probably be a short dog. At East Tennessee State, I think they will be a dog. At Sanford, so you look at it, and you got 7 road games. I think there'll be a dog in all 7 of them. You don't want that on the schedule. I hope I'm wrong, but what do you make of this schedule, man?
Unfortunately, man, I don't think you're wrong because I think 1-3 in the non-con is pretty much what you're going to go. Your best case scenario, you're going to go 2-2 if you squeak out a win against Elon, but that's a tall order, man. That's a good football program. Arguably, I think Elon should have been in the FCS playoffs last year. They were 2 years ago. So, I mean, to me, that's another FCS playoff team. So you're playing NC State, one of traditionally, a tough ACC Power 5 football team, and then you're playing what amounts to 2 FCS playoff teams. One of them was in the national championship last year. So the non-con couldn't be any harder. Like you said, the early bye, the one bright point is the Wofford Citadel stretch before Furman, but then you follow that up with the Mercer game. This is brutal, man. I don't see great things coming, especially one of the big things, losing Desmond Reed. That really, really hurts. I think that's when we really saw this Western Carolina team when the the wind kind of came out of the sails was when he got hurt last year. Now he's running back for Narduzzi up at Pitt, where he should have some good success. But this team, this is tough. It's a tough schedule, and I hate to see it. Shout out Weehawk.
The only thing I'll say is at least Furman gets Chattanooga the week before, who made the FCS playoffs last year. So that might be a bigger target than, say, Western Carolina. But
I'm seeing here the Chattanooga game is homecoming too for Western Carolina, so maybe that's a little fuel to the fire.
There you go. There you go. Get out there, get some scattered ass, and watch the Cats dominate. Let's go. All right, final school here is the Wofford Terriers. What has happened to I remember Wofford being pretty good. I mean, but Sean Watson, who's a guy I'm familiar with, he was the OC of the Colorado Buffaloes for a long time under Gary Barnett. Wasn't the kindest of seasons a year ago. 2-9. He's got his work cut out for him, but I mean, the schedule is not nice either. I mean, the non-con week 1 at Gardner-Webb. Now they are breaking in a brand new head coach. Maybe they can get him. Trying to look at this optimistically. Week 2, they're heading to Richmond to take on the Spiders. They will lose. Week 3, they're home to William and Mary. They will lose. The other non-con game is the final game of the season at South Carolina, week 13. There's a decent shot they're 0-4. I think they might be able to get good. Circle that Gardner-Webb there, that game in Boiling Springs. So let's go chronologically. Like I said, at Gardner-Webb, at Richmond to open the season, then home to William and Mary. Then a week 4 bye week. You know I hate that. Then home to Mercer, week 5. Then at Western Carolina, week 6. Then home to VMI, week 7. Then at Chattanooga, week 8. Home to East Tennessee State, week 9. At Samford, week 10. At Furman, week 11. Home to the Citadel, week 12. Then at South Carolina. Good God. So what? They got 7 away games. When are they going to the 12 games? They need to go to the 12-game season in the FCS. But regular season, I'm saying. But at the same time, I just don't see the wins here. Every road game, maybe Gardner-Webb. But I still don't think. I think Gardner-Webb's ahead of them. I think they're going to go 0-7 on the road. At home, maybe they get VMI, maybe they get the Citadel, but good luck selling me on a winning season with the Terriers with that sweet ass old school logo. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for one, their Terrier logo needs to be everywhere they could put it. I love it. That's just like a random mascot. It's not even like a overly tough dog that people know of. So it's one of my favorite mascots, actually. But this is, I had this at number 2. This is not the schedule you want to see for a program that's trying to turn things around and get out of the basement of the SoCon. This is brutal. You covered most everything. Like you said, the Gardner-Webb game, that's really big for Wofford and how I think their season's going to go. But just looking outside of that, the rest of the non-con I'm chalking up as losses. And then you look at their conference games. They got Western Carolina. They got Chattanooga. They got Samford. They got Furman. Every single one of those games on the road. Absolutely brutal. I couldn't think of a worse way for this schedule to shape up for a team that's trying to get things together and get their program on a run. It's unfortunate, man.
It is. And yeah, I mean, I can certainly see the argument for second hardest schedule. I think it's right in there. I don't think it's the hardest, but I think 2 or 3 is where it deserves to be. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, ranking them, obviously the hardest was Western Carolina. Wofford was 3. And then I had the likes of Chattanooga at 2. But I don't know, folks. So who was your top 3?
Same top 3 as you. I just had Wofford and Chattanooga switch. So Western Carolina, Wofford, Chattanooga.
There we go. It's got to be fun to watch.
Ask you a question.
What's that?
SoCon, a little bit of FCS. While it's better than FBS, as far as favoritism, it still has. You're still going to get the most Missouri Valley and CAA. Big Sky coming in behind that, and then SoCon, you're down there. So most teams most teams I think you can get in the FCS playoffs out of the SoCon on a year-to-year basis. At most, I'm thinking 3. Who do you think could be the sneaky pick to weasel their way into the playoffs?
I think it's East Tennessee State.
Really interesting.
Just with all those transfers, it's different than before. You saw this. I think the sport changes, football and basketball with the portal like this. It's different to me if you're a coach and you go get new players that have to, that have to come in and learn your system. But when you take like 30 guys that are, I don't remember what the number was off the top of my head right now, but it was like 20 guys. I feel like they know your system. So like, assuming those are key guys that will be on the field as starters, I think it's a huge leg up on today's college football than say before, where you just, I took the job. So I think East Tennessee State could be, KP. And shout out to KP in the chat. He goes, CAA is dead. Look for 4 teams from SoCon this season. Yeah, CAA. Remember, Delaware's leaving. They're not eligible. They're not eligible for the FCS playoffs this year. So in the CAA, you really have just Richmond and William and Mary.
Albany,
maybe New Hampshire. You can never count them out. But
our boys Elon, they got to be all right.
Let me ask you about that. Do you think the SoCon should jump up and try to snag up like North Alabama or Davidson or Gardner Webb? Do you think they should consider trying to get some of those schools? Even West Georgia. You know what I mean? Like, do you think that's? I know I just made a case that I'd love the smaller conferences where everyone plays each other, but I also think about opportunity to we know the Missouri Valley and the Big Sky kind of run the sport right now. For the SoCon to get up there, you got to add a little or with the CAA being a catastrophe a little bit, is there any? I think the CAA is a better TV deal though, as far as financially, not from a viewing perspective. Is there any advantage to trying to? What if they made a push for saying, "Hey, Richmond, hey, William and Mary, come in here. Elon, get in here." And you have 12 teams.
I don't think, because the thing is I do agree with KP Marshall there. That's a good call. CAA is going to be looking a little weaker, but here's the thing with how these things run is I don't think the FCS, the NCAA is really going to let the CAA look weaker by that much. While we know people that could see, you always call it seeing through the matrix, right? They're losing some, but I still think the powers that be, they're going to give the favoritism. They're going to give those extra teams the 5th to 6th spot. 5th usually is going to go to the CAA. So to your point, though, yes, I would bring in any talent I could. Being the SoCon, I'd start looking into, Florida. Maybe, hey, Stetson, maybe you're ready to start fighting. I'd look to take teams from other conferences that get you expanded in the country a little bit. Not crazy like Pac-12 teams jumping ship to go to the Big Ten. I hate that shit. But give me some Florida down here in the SoCon. Let's expand it a litle bit. Let's get some Gulf Coast guru picks. Let's go. Yeah, let's expand.
Get on that powerboat. Get on that powerboat. Also, if I'm mentioning the CAA, I got to mention Villanova. That's my fault. West Florida. KP's talking about West Florida, obviously. And I just saw a lot of money come into their program. To build a stadium. That would be awesome. Get West Florida going there. How about this though? If you get West Florida, you got to get West Georgia. I want that as I know West Georgia is not touching Florida, but still it sounds good. West Florida against West Georgia. All right. All right. This is our show. Next week we will be talking the CAA in their 5,000 teams. All right. That's another thing is they kind of whiffed on their I think that's what KP's alluding to. It's like some of the teams they added in now. Who knows down the road? I think one thing we always think of, I cover the FBS as well. Go listen to the college football experience. This is the FCS college football experience. We cover both, but it's one like I hate when people look at it like now, because it's funny like getting in these arguments. Like it's my nature, and the sport is always changing. It's like you're arguing with someone. It's like you realize like certain schools, like some people say, well, no, that's always been the same. You have the same teams at the top of the FBS. And I'm like, nah, you do, but you're not really. TCU just played for national championship 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Utah was a doormat when I fucking started watching college football back in the day. Shit changes. You know what I mean? And maybe someone can step up. They got to throw some more money into some of those programs, though. I'll say that. I think you got to throw a little more money in there, but love the FCS. And we were saying, me and you, Mike, were saying, could the UAC step up? And some of those programs, I think long-term could be all right, but who knows? Who knows if there is a long-term with that conference?
I feel like last year the UAC was one of the most entertaining conferences. And honestly, I think there was some teams in there that could have been in the playoffs and made some noise.
Yeah. Can the Citadel win a game? Stay tuned. Please.
Ninth easiest schedule.
They did whiff. I thought Paul Johnson was the guy to bring him back. Thought he was out there. Thought he was retired somewhere down there in Savannah or something. Thought he was the guy. But look, I think he's a Citadel fan, and I'm a Citadel fan. I mean, I'm not like you where you grew up with it, I believe, but I enjoy the academies, and I like to see them. Like when VMI or the Citadel, I know that's a rivalry, but I like it. It's better. College football is better when you have the academies playing good ball, in my opinion. They will win a game this year. I'm gonna step out on a limb. They're gonna win a game this year. They were close in a game or two last year. But I'm excited, and we'll break down the entire SoCon. I got to get you on the show. I'm assuming, I think that's Kevin. I think they changed his name on us, but gotta have you come guest appearance, man. Talk about the Citadel there. If not, we can just talk about Stump Mitchell for an hour. Let's go. All right. Folks, next week, the CAA and their 10,000 teams. They're like they're the Big Ten of the FCS. You know what I mean? They're the one with like I know they're losing Delaware, but
quantity over quality.
Sometimes I forget that Hampton's in there. I'm like, oh shit, that's right, Hampton, North Carolina A&T. Yeah. I mean, and I think A&T's got. It's interesting if I ask, like we have a guy here at SGPN that is a graduate from North Carolina A&T. Shout out to Terrell Furman Jr. But he was like, he was split on it. He was like, it makes sense for us to, if we want to ever like start making more money, we had to go. But at the same time, he's like, but I don't get excited for any games on the schedule. It's almost like the West Virginia thing. When West Virginia jumped to the Big 12, having a bunch of friends that, I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, and I had a bunch of friends that went to West Virginia. And they're like, are we supposed to be excited to play Baylor or Iowa State? It's like, I mean, these are fun programs, I guess, but I mean, why? Why should, and that's why they've struggled with attendance. I'm like a place that always, I mean, if you've been to Morgantown, all you do is drink and get fucked up. It makes you wonder if it's the right move for that. I've heard the same. I went to a Nebraska game and they have these fake sellouts that they say, we still have the sellout streak. And I'm like, motherfucker, I was at the game and that was not sold out. Maybe theoretically, like the tickets were purchased, but, and we had Larry, the cable guy, on the show talking about that. He's a big, like he has a booth and everything to Nebraska. And he's like, because I got this so my kids can have it. They don't even like Nebraska football because they haven't been good in so long. But my point is, by sometimes making the move, you're used to all these rivalries. I understand, like, you want more money, but you might actually end up clipping yourself a little bit long-term financially by doing this because of fan interest. I don't know. Something to talk about. We'll talk about it next week on the CAA show. Folks, make sure you give the Gulf Coast Guru, the Powerboat God, a follow on Twitter at GCG_wins. He's out there in the fucking Everglades, kicking ass, doing all that good stuff. All right. If you happen to be out there in the Gulf of Mexico and a powerboat whizzes by you, you know who it is. All right.
Some trash.
Well, yeah. Who's raising these kids these days? Right? Just throwing trash in the ocean. You know what I mean?
Savages, man.
I know they had to be fucked up.
Everybody down here always is, man. We got Tom Brady for a couple years, and he's out there chucking a Lombardi trophy.
That's true. Yeah, I saw, and I think he got Botox too. But I mean, who am I to know for sure? But he just looks. He's got a little Sam Cassell shine to him right now. Where he looks kind of like a fucking alien. But anyway, look, I'm on Twitter at DColbyD. Check out the College Football Experience and the FCS College Football Experience. Both of them, all of them. I host a bunch of shows. I love football. UFL Gambling Podcast, CFL Gambling Podcast. Got another show coming soon that we can hype next week, I think. We'll talk about it. So hit that like, hit that subscribe, people. We appreciate you in the chat. And this is not our preview. Some people keep thinking like this is our preview episode. If I get another DM on that, say you didn't even preview the teams. No shit. We're gonna preview the teams. We need the transfer portal to close. I got no idea who's playing anywhere. All right. Until next time, folks. Appreciate you tuning in. This is the FCS College Football Experience. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.